Assalamu alaikum everyone. Welcome to the Medical Talk. Today we have with us Dr. Noor-us-Sabah Ahmad. Dr. Noor is a graduate of the King Edward Medical University, Lahore, and she has received a record of 23 medals at her graduation. She also received the prestigious Pride of Pakistan award, and she has been an inspiration to many young girls, including myself, to pursue their dreams and achieve big things in medicine.
So thank you for such an introduction. I honestly am humbled. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining and for agreeing to do this interview. It's a big honor for us. So, Dr. Noor, I would like to start the conversation by knowing a bit about your early life, what your early education looked like, and where were you born and raised?
So I was basically born in Lahore, Pakistan, but then my parents had to move to Canada for a while. मेरे father की job की वजह से. And so basically, like the early part of my life, I think कि पहले तकरीबन class 2 तक I was there. So that's what my early life looked like, and that's where I started my education, basically in Toronto. After that, हम Kuwait move हो गए, so that was kind of like a part where I think I spent 2 years in the Middle East, which I think is really different compared to I feel like I've had this exposure to completely different cultures at a very young age. And then when I was in grade 5, we moved back to Pakistan. We've been there since. So yeah, I think that having that exposure to completely different cultures at a young age was actually really interesting. And also I think helped me grow as a person as well. And I think I definitely learned how to adjust to different new situations quickly enough. So yeah, I think that really was an interesting part of my early life.
Actually, I can relate to that a lot because I have also lived in 7 cities in Pakistan since I was born. I moved because of my father's job around 7 cities. So it's a lot of exposure, and I can understand it's a very good exposure at an early stage. So Dr. Noor, why did you choose medicine and who was your inspiration?
So honestly, my mother is also a doctor, and I feel like some part of me subconsciously always associated myself with the fact that I want to grow up and be like my mom. And go and see patients and come home and talk about patients. And I feel like some part of me was always kind of inclined towards that. But also I really liked the human body. I really liked studying about it. And I felt like this was something that I really wanted to pursue. I was genuinely interested in this. And obviously I feel like in our society in Pakistan, like this is something you can definitely relate with. There's this whole unspoken subconscious pressure of growing up to become a doctor. I'm not sure how much. It's really hard to quantify how much of this is your own choice and how much is, this passive subconscious thing that you inherently begin to associate yourself with. So I think that's a difficult question. I'm definitely sure that played a huge part in my decision, having that subconscious thought. But there was also this book that I read in grade 10. And grade 10 is like the stage where you're choosing pre-med or pre-engineering, and you're kind of all confused about this, or आप सोच रहे होते हो कि मैं करना भी चाहती हूँ medical या नहीं, और क्या करना चाहिए क्या नहीं. So I read that book. It's called Doctors. It's by Eric Siegel. So at that stage of my life, that book was really inspirational. I don't know if I read it again, will it serve as the same inspiration now? Because now I've been through all of those stages and you realize that it's not as glamorous maybe as that book probably depicted. But it was also very real. It showed the challenges as well. So that book, I feel like, and I'm somebody who reads a lot and, feels a really personal connection to the books that she reads. So I felt that that book might have kind of pushed me towards confirming that decision that I want to be a doctor. This is what I want to do.
I think a lot of people pursue medicine because of family pressure, but you had a very good reason and motivation to become a doctor. So apart from that, so we are talking about the MCAT, and in the past few years, there has been a lot of debate regarding the medical college admission process in Pakistan, especially in our year, and then the year after, there were a lot of confusions. So what are your thoughts on the medical college admission process in Pakistan? And do you think there are some changes required?
So definitely there are changes required, but I really think that the MCAT is really important because there's only one standardized test at this point that exists to judge students, on a similar level. Because board exams and all of that is so subjective, and her board ka apna standard hai, apna marking scheme hai, apni grading scheme hai. And then we all understand, everybody who has been through metric and FSC know that Urdu ki writing and English ki writing, things like that play such an important role in getting our metric and FSC marks. And once you're a doctor, your writing does not matter at all. And that's not really a good metric to judge somebody to see if they're good enough to become a doctor. Saying that, I also believe that there are some changes that we need to do in our MCAT as well as our metric and FSC system. It's like a whole educational system ko changes ki zarurat hai. I don't know how practical it is for those changes to happen in a short time. This is something that will take a lot of effort, and it takes time for evolution to exist in a system, and it takes time for people to accept that evolution as well. So that's also something that needs to happen. And then apart from that, I feel like because our medical admission is like very it's just like test, and you're not really sure, and you're not really prepared for what you're getting into. So once you're like, आप FSC करते हो, metric करते हो, फिर आप MCAT करते हो, और फिर आप medical में आ जाते हो, फिर आपको पता भी नहीं होता कि आपने क्या अपने सर ले लिया है और क्या आपने पल्ले बांध लिया है. So I feel like career counseling is important, or इस तरह का भी component होना चाहिए that before we push grade 10 या grade 12 के students into choosing a career, we should have systems. I don't know how that's possible at this point, but we definitely should have systems where students know what they're going into. For example, medical students in other countries, they do pre-med ke time pe, they do shadowing, and they go and they have those experiences. And once they apply into medical school, they have their scores. Definitely, they have MCAT, they have their scores and whatever, but they also have this shadowing experience and volunteer experience and stuff like that that just goes into their application and shows that they're prepared for what they're going into. Yeah. There are drawbacks to that system as well, क्योंकि फिर getting experience, even यहाँ पे I felt कि having to bulk up your CV with stuff like that does put a lot of undue pressure, especially to people who are not socioeconomically as advantaged, because obviously getting volunteer experience and getting shadowing experience is something that you can afford to do if you're well off, and आपको पता है कि you don't have to work jobs to get money, or आपको पता है कि your parents can contact somebody and you can go shadow with them. So it's like, I think it's a double-edged sword. There needs to be more that should be done to kind of standardize that. But I definitely think that having the MCAT is really important, because there needs to be at least one objective criteria to assess people before you just tell them to go into medicine. So yeah, this is kind of what I think at this point.
I think that's a very important point, that MCAT is important, but there are some reforms and some changes that are needed. But it's not an easy thing. It's difficult. It takes time.
Definitely.
So Dr. Noor, how was your university experience, and do you have any memories that you want to share with the people who are watching, and do you have any advice for them?
So at the time that I was in university, I was really enjoying it. So I had no second thoughts. But now when I look back at it, I feel that it was kind of a bittersweet experience. At that time, I didn't really have a lot of time to dwell on the bitter parts of it. I was like really focused on enjoy it, jo bhi hai, khair hai, khair hai. But I feel like looking back on it, I feel like it was kind of hard at times and fun, obviously, at times as well. Memories. I don't think I can recall any at this point. Agar kuch yaad aaye to I'll let you know. But for tips for enjoying medical life, I feel like it's very hard to say something very general about this, because it's a very personal thing. I feel like for me, something that is really important to keep me sane has to be in my life, right?
Yeah.
So if reading keeps me sane, I have to incorporate that into my routine, whatever, because I cannot function without it. And if hanging out with friends keeps me sane, or doing extracurriculars, acting, doing theater, for example, if that keeps me sane, I need to find a way to incorporate that into my routine. Saying that, I feel like it's a completely personal choice for some people what you want to enjoy, and what the way that you want to live your life should be primarily the thing that guides you. the peer pressure नहीं होना चाहिए कि ये भी करना है, ये भी करना है, ये भी करना है, कि ये कर रहा है या वो कर रहा है, which is hard because I mean जब हम जो medical में आते हैं, they're already type A personalities and they want to be like excelling at everything. So
Everything.
yeah.
Yeah. I think there needs to be a fine line between what you want to do and peer pressure, because there is a lot of peer pressure in med school.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So talking about peer pressure and ECAs, there's this issue of burnout in medical school. And I think not only Pakistani students, but all over the world, medical students face burnout, and they find it very difficult to maintain a work-life balance. So how do you suggest that we go about it and manage all of this? You talked about incorporating any hobbies that you have, but apart from that, how should we manage it?
So this is something I'm still learning because I'm at a very early stage of my career. So this is something I'm still actively learning and I'm evolving. But what I feel at this point, what I have learned at this point, I think would be that you shouldn't feel pressured about keeping a balance, because the kind of career we're in, there's not always going to be a perfect balance. So the balance is not always going to look like this. So sometimes it's going to be like this, sometimes it's going to be like this. Sometimes you have to focus more on particular aspects, and then put certain parts of your life to the sideline for a bit. And then sometimes you need to focus on those parts of your life that you had kind of pushed away. And then the dusra big part that you need to kind of put it to the back. So, and then there will be some amazing times that sab kuch perfectly balanced, but that's like rare. So I feel that it's a very tricky question, and this is something I'm still learning, and I think everybody like continues to learn and evolve as they grow. But I feel that you need to think of your priorities at any given point. कि ये मेरी मतलब इस वक्त सबसे जरूरी चीज क्या है? For example, if you're studying for an exam और वो exam महीने बाद है, तो you know कि वो महीने बाद है, ये सबसे important चीज है, that should come at the top of your list of to-do things, right? But then again, you don't want to burn out and you don't want to let anxiety overpower you. So also you need to keep including things in your routine that keep you sane. For example, अगर पूरा दिन पढ़ने के एंड पे अगर आप किसी सीजन के एक एपिसोड देख के you feel better, then you should not deprive yourself of that relaxation or that enjoyment for a while. So it's kind of, I think it's kind of a weird nuanced answer where balance is not perfectly achievable. That's what I think. And people who say कि perfectly सब कुछ balanced है, it's just a phase of their life. एक phase आएगा जिसमें नहीं balance हो रहा होगा. So it's all going.
That's just what medicine is. You need to prioritize. Yeah.
You need to prioritize, definitely. And then don't worry too much about keeping a balance at all the time. There's sometimes that you have to just accept कि नहीं हो रहा balance, or it's okay, just accept it.
Yeah, I think just need to prioritize and learn how to go, especially in medicine.
Definitely.
So you have achieved wonderful things in your medical career up till now. You have a very good academic record. So do you have any productivity tips for our audience? Do you have any tools that you used or resources that you used apart from the conventional books to retain all the information? Because obviously there's a lot of information to learn in medicine.
Yes, definitely. I feel I learn well when I watch a video of something, because उससे ज़रा consolidate होता है, mind में image बन जाता है. And I'm a visual learner. I watch videos, or especially for like micro and pharma, I used to watch Sketchy. I'm sure you probably have heard of it. It's very famous आजकल. So that really helped me. Whichever you sketchy wale images, I can completely recall them at the back of my mind. Completely wo pictures anyway. So I feel like that's really important. So I know some people who use flashcards and that have worked really well for them. I personally have not used flashcards, but a few of my friends have been using them and they've been excelling as well. So I think it depends on what works for you. So I feel like once you're in med school, the first thing that you should think about, and not really actively think about, but keep in the back of your mind, because this is something you need to figure out in the first few months, is what kind of study method works for you, because it's a completely different thing for every other person. So something that works for me might not necessarily be a good idea for you. So, and especially in terms of some people ask me कि रात को पढ़ना चाहिए, दिन को पढ़ना चाहिए. That again is a completely personal question. That whatever works for you should be your method. So videos, yes. and then a second number two would I would यार ये दोनों नंबर वन पे compete कर रही हैं दोनों चीजें. सेकंड बात है discussing it with friends, discussing with it with your peers. मतलब एक दफा आप एक टॉपिक किसी को पढ़ा दो वो आपको नहीं भूलता. So that's something that really helped because my friends group, we would, discuss things together and have study sessions together. And then because we were all day scholars, we weren't hostels. Hostel में तो लोग बैठ के आराम से करते हैं, but we were day scholars, so we had limited time. उसमें हम करते थे, फिर हम घर आके we used to send audios about जो भी topic पर है, audios भेज देते. So even for class tests, what we would do is that हम क्योंकि थ्रू आउट द ईयर तो हम सब एक्स्ट्रा करिकुलर्स कर रहे थे, तो माय होल ग्रुप वाज काइंड ऑफ लाइक दैट एंड वी वर ऑल पार्टीइंग एंड ऑल. तो हम इस तरह पूरा टेस्ट नहीं प्रिपेयर होता था एंड टाइम तक. तो वी वुड डिवाइड टॉपिक्स एंड देन हर बंदे ने अपने टॉपिक की ऑडियोज भेजनी होती थी ग्रुप में. और फिर अपना टॉपिक इस तरह से आपका तैयार हो जाता था और फिर बाकी लोग जो ऑडियोज भेजते थे ना, वी वुड लिसन टू दोज ऑडियोज और साथ में रीड कर लिया बुक, और वो काइंड ऑफ अंदर जहन में बैठ जाती है बात. That's how we used to study efficiently. तो जो चीज हफ्ते में पढ़नी होती थी वो हम लोग 2 दिन में इतना कर लेते थे. So I think that's really, ये मुझे लगता है the 2 major methods that I utilized in mid school.
That's a very great. Yeah, that's a very good idea, the audio thing, because I do the video thing, but I haven't done the audio thing yet. I think that's a great idea. I think
I have like a whole, like we had whole folders of audio. अभी हम कहते थे we could definitely post it on YouTube or something. हम कुछ अपने चैनल बना के पैसे ही कमा ले, but we never got to that point. We're too lazy to convert it into something that we could actually post.
But I think that is a very good idea. You should definitely put those on YouTube. I think they'll be really helpful.
I don't know if I still have them. किसी phone में कहीं पर पड़ी नहीं है, but
Dr. Noor, especially in Pakistan, female doctors find much more difficult working environment than male doctors. And especially in rural health centers and the basic health units in rural areas, we need female doctors. People over there want female doctors, but female doctors don't feel very safe going over there. So what do you think we can do as a society and what the government should do to make the environment more safe for the female doctors so that they can practice over there and help with the healthcare system in rural areas?
So this is a very important and a very vast question. As a society, there is so much that we need to do. Honestly, it's very depressing at times to see how much we really need to evolve. I mean, it's the 21st century or still and this is something that you must have experienced as a female student, that when you walk into class, there are people who would actively say कि अच्छा ये लड़कियों ने तो रोटियां बनानी होंगी, ये करना होगा. Even like some of our esteemed teachers would say that as well and say it openly. Male colleagues, yeah, even female colleagues would be saying stuff like that. So it's honestly, it's very disappointing. It's very demeaning and very degrading to have to hear that once you've worked hard all your life and you know that you're capable of something, and then when you're finally there, have some random person who doesn't even know you randomly say कि oh, because you're a girl, you're a woman, तो तुम्हें तो रोटियां पकानी है, ये करना है, वो करना है. That is so infuriating. I mean, I really don't know कि इसको बदलने में कितना टाइम लगेगा, because this is something that needs to, like, ये बहुत organic change है. जब आपके बचपन से the way you're raised, that's the things you're gonna say when you grow up, right? So raising a whole new generation of people who have better opinions will take a lot of time, and I really don't know कि कोई कुछ 1 साल या 2 साल वाला कोई हल हम कर सकते हैं कि नहीं. What we can do personally at our stage, at the stage that I am at, that you are at, people who are young and just stepping into the field, I feel the most important thing we can do is have conversations, like talk about this to our friends, talk about it to our colleagues, to our family. Bring these conversations up with your siblings, with your younger sister, and also with your brothers, not just with the women in your life, but also the men in your life. Talk about it to your male class fellows, to your whatever, anybody in your life.
Like you say, I think males need to be educated more than females.
Definitely. Because I feel that there's a gap that exists in society, क्योंकि हमने लड़कियों को तो बहुत कह दिया कि हाँ पढ़ो ये हो जाएगा वो हो जाएगा, पर हम लड़कों को बताना भूल गए कि लड़कियां तैयार हो रही है पढ़ने के लिए, the field, and you need to be prepared for that and be more open minded. I feel like हमने imbalance create कर लिया फिर society में, and now we're kind of having to deal with the consequences of that imbalance. So we really need to start conversations, because I feel that if we don't talk about it, so obviously kuch bhi nahi hoga, things won't change. If we talk about it, things might not change, but at least we are trying to do something. Somebody might
Listen
understand.
to our
And somebody,
conversations.
yeah. And I've personally felt that having conversations has helped. Like I've personally felt that people who have been exposed to these conversations have changed their attitudes as time passed. This is something that I've personally experienced. So I really think we really need to have those conversations at our level. And then once we are at a level where we can actually make changes, once we're at leadership positions, जब हमें पता है कि हम कुछ चेंज कर सकते हैं, तो डेफिनेटली वी नीड टू, फिर तो बहुत लंबी डिबेट है, फिर तो वो एक और पॉडकास्ट होनी चाहिए इसमें कंप्लीटली जो लीडरशिप, बट लेट्स जस्ट स्टे at our level at this point.
And especially what you talked about, there have been certain people I have talked to, male friends that I've talked to, who think that there should be a lower merit for male medical students so that they can get in easily because females score more. And it just doesn't make sense. I mean, if you want to get into med school, then score higher. Dr. Noor, do you think that we should move on from the conventional teaching methods where a teacher comes into the classroom, reads off of a PowerPoint presentation? Do you think there should be more visual learning with animations and videos and more softwares? I mean, everything is available now. You just need to use it. So do you think we should move on because that's a better way of learning? I personally think that I learned better with videos rather than PowerPoint presentations.
Definitely, and I completely agree. And I think that this is really outdated जो हमारा system चल रहा है, and we really need to change. And especially the classroom sizes are very impractical. 300 log sitting in a classroom, listening to somebody rattle off some facts, that's not going to help us learn. That's not going to make us better doctors. I honestly think that it's time to explore other things. And I feel like COVID has taught us this as well. Okay, sitting at home, watching videos or virtual conversations can help just as much. Yeah. So there's a concept called a flipped classroom method that students like teaching hospitals in the US have kind of started exploring, and they're doing studies on it, which I feel is very nice, and probably Pakistan may be introduced karana chahiye eventually. Is that they get all the study materials beforehand. Just now कोई topic है, कोई भी topic पकड़ लेते हैं. For example, कोई एक disease है. Ward में आप देख लो heart failure, for example. So you get all the study materials for heart failure beforehand, और आप उसकी videos देख लेते हो, आप उसकी जो भी visual representation वाला material है, you go through it. And then in the classroom, instead of having somebody say facts, in the classroom you have smaller groups, or your instructor is basically somebody you can ask questions about what you understood, और जो deficiency है knowledge की, teacher का काम उस deficiency को पूरा करना चाहिए के लिए होना चाहिए, because that's something that you can learn through videos. So you talk to your instructor and you understand और वो deficiency आप पूरी करते हैं, and then you see a practical example of a patient, and then you perform whatever like examinations and जो भी practical stuff that you can do that, and the instructor आपको उस पे feedback दे, which I think is a really nice idea that should be incorporated. And I feel that I would learn much better in a system like that, क्योंकि honestly जो videos और lectures और facts है ना, ये अपनी ease पे होनी चाहिए, कि आपकी मर्जी आप बेड में लेट के देखना चाहते हो या डेस्क पे बैठ के या क्लासरूम में बैठ के, it's not gonna change this कि सीधे बैठ के क्लासरूम में ऐसे बैठ के और सुबह 7 बजे आप यही फैक्ट सुनो, या वर्सेस रात को 10 बजे बैठ के अपने कमरे में बेड पे लेट के सुनो. इसलिए हर बंदे का अपना स्टाइल है, ये आपके ऊपर होना चाहिए. तो आई फील कि फैक्ट्स वाला पार्ट ऑफ वीडियोस ये प्रोवाइड करनी चाहिए मटेरियल टू स्टूडेंट्स, और फिर उसके बाद अगले दिन या व्हाटएवर जो प्रैक्टिकल डिस्कशन और प्रैक्टिकल डेफिशिएंसीज है ना, वो आपके टीचर्स के साथ करनी चाहिए कवर.
Yeah, I think that's very important. I am a second year student, and it gets very draining at times to listen to facts the entire day from 8 to 3. I can easily understand.
I think I get zoned out in most of my lectures. Some of the teachers are amazing who taught really well. Like I would say definitely kudos to them. Matlab, honestly, I would be engaged. Lekin I think if 50%, yeah, 70% of the time you're kind of zoned out, or आपको नहीं समझ आ रहा क्या हो रहा है.
That's true. I think it's a problem all over Pakistan, I feel, and it needs fixing. So, Dr. Noor, how have you seen research evolve throughout your medical school journey? And what do you think about the research culture in Pakistani medical schools?
So this is something that I'm still discovering, and so obviously there's not a lot of research culture as you get into medical school. There's not a lot happening, and it's something that you have to kind of you realize the importance of it over time, and this is something that I'm realizing at this point. कि, there's a huge gap that exists of research in Pakistan क्योंकि जब इस तरह का culture exist नहीं करता कोई इस तरह की funding exist नहीं करती there's not a lot that's happening versus in the world where research is a very big thing or which again is sometimes bad क्योंकि वो number of publications से worth measure करे which again is kind of like there are two sides to every story but there needs to be some level of the research culture that should exist in any scientific curriculum, right? So I think that there's a lot that needs to be done at this point. This is something that I'm also discovering as time goes on. क्योंकि in medical school उस तरह से we do have like वो community medicine, we have research and stuff like that, but it's not उस level पे नहीं है where you could compete with the world in terms of how impactful research contributions you're making. So I think there's a lot to do in this domain as well. Or if any medical student is watching this, I would say that put in effort, look up resources for research, reach out to people, and start to get involved in research as soon as you can. It's never too early and it's never too late. So I would say don't rely on your medical school to tell you when to do research or not, because there's a gap that exists in this area. So this is something that you have to do yourself. And at this point, you have to do this yourself and look out, reach out, look up things, and try to do as much as you can.
Yourself, yeah. I think it's better if you start early, but it's never too late, as you said. So, Dr. Noor, this is a question I wanted to ask you because you're just getting into the clinical side of medicine and practicing side of medicine. How do you see the future of medical education and medicine in the next 50 years?
So it's hard to say that how I see it. I would like to probably talk about how I want to see it, maybe.
Okay, yeah. Sure.
In terms of how I want to see it for medical education, like I mentioned, I would definitely want, especially in Pakistan, for education to be more interactive and less of that conventional classroom system that we discussed kiya tha. In terms of medicine, if I'm talking about Pakistan, so I would definitely want to see that in the next 50 years, we are at par with the world in terms of technology, in terms of training, because we have amazing people. Matlab, the human resource is there, but the infrastructure is lacking. We have amazing people who are limited by the fact that they don't have enough resources to help their patients. चाहे जितने skilled, जितने amazing, जितने अच्छे डॉक्टर हो, अगर आपके पास basic drug नहीं है patient को देने के लिए, तो like you're helpless at that point. Now there's only so much that you can do, and that is so frustrating. Or yes, and I feel like I would definitely want to see Pakistan at a place where we allocate enough budget to our healthcare money to the people who really need it. So that's basically what I want to see healthcare system in Pakistan be at. कि जब आप graduate हो, आप अपनी house job शुरू करो, जो कुछ शुरू करो, आप helpless feel ना करो, आपको ये ना लगे कि भाई you need to escape this system just to stop feeling so helpless all the time. You really need to feel like you are actually being able to do what you were preparing to do all your life, that is help patients.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of my seniors that I talk to and people in my family who just graduated, they do feel helpless because first of all, getting a job in Pakistan is not easy. Then it's underpaid, and then there's a lack of resources. So there are a lot of issues that need to be sorted out for graduates, and medical students have other issues, graduates have other issues, and I hope that Pakistan has a better healthcare system in the future, inshallah. Thank you so much for supporting us and for agreeing to do this interview. And I hope that you have a great medical career the same way that you have achieved in your MBBS. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much.